Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at a triple shadow team for the Open Ultra League. This is mostly a very fun and flexible team, but it can also work out very well if you play it properly. It's not the most beginner friendly team because these Pokemon do not like being behind on energy, so if you're very slow with your swaps and all that, it's probably not going to work out very well. But if you like all the technical aspects and you're good at over farming, using your shields to right places and catching moves, this team can work out incredibly well, and at the very least it's a ton of fun to use. Going into the first game, we lead into Cresselia. Yikes. We're ABA weak to it, so we kind of have to stay in. But the way I like to play this is Walrein can take one Grass Knot. So I can take the first one and then I try to catch the second one on Charizard. Go for the Earthquake, it is the more energy efficient move after the Icicle Spear debuff or nerf. They go for a Grass Knot. And then it is 6 for the first 2 Grass Knots, but people around my elo like to go up to right before you get to your move, before they throw their move. So I catch it after 7 on Charizard, very nice catch. And then they bring in a Swampert, Shadow Swampert. And again, they go up to right before I get to my Blast Burn, and then they throw their move, so I CMP tie them with a Dragon Claw. But I actually changed my mind here and decide to shield this anyways, thinking that my Charizard might have a lot of play against this team. I don't throw my Dragon Claw here because I don't think it was enough, so I would rather overfarm even more. And then go up to right before they get to their third Hydro Cannon, go for this one. I can CMP tie them and win CMP on the next one, or I can catch the Hydro Cannon on my Walrein, save the energy on Charizard. And this is not very effective, still does a lot. They bring in a Registeel, and we just about get to an Earthquake. It should do a lot of damage, but the Registeel getting a farm down is of course never nice. Charizard cannot live a move from this thing. Swampert can, so I bring in the Swampert. Tank in a Focus Blast. And then I overfarm as much as possible before they get to the next Focus Blast. Go for the Hydro Cannon. This should be enough to take out the Registeel. That's the trick with this team. Just always try and overfarm as much as possible. Have energy everywhere. They're 4 away from a move on both their back 2 Pokemon. So I go for 3 more Mud Shots. And then I go for the Hydro Cannon. And I know that Charizard wins CMP, I have the Dragon Claw banked, so I swap Charizard, go for the CMP tie into Swampert, and take out the Swampert with all of this energy, so they don't get it off. And then they bring in Cresselia, and they realize there's just no way they're gonna win this. I just outplayed them, that was a very good game. Next game, lead into a Shadow Skuntank. Pretty neutral lead, probably to Walrein's advantage, but they swap into Cofagrigus, also a pretty neutral matchup. I go for the Icicle Spear, thinking that if I can win switch, I can get Swampert onto the Skuntank, and that would probably be a pretty good situation. Walrein can live 1 Shadow Ball. They overfarm by 2, so they're 5 away from the second one. So farm up 4 more, and then I go for the Earthquake, thinking that an Icicle Spear is not enough. And they no-shield it. So we take out the Cofagrigus, and I'm considering swapping out, as you can see, but I decide last second to actually let my Walrein get farmed down by Skuntank so I can get Swampert onto this without being switch locked. Swampert can take a crunch here. It's not comfortable, but you would rather take the first one because otherwise you might get debuffed. And then they bring in a Tapu Fini. Yikes. Go for the Hydro Cannon bait. Of course I have to stay in here. Charizard can all see this and they call it as well. Oh, yikes. Go for a second one. I really hope I can land at least 1 more Hydro Cannon to put the Tapu Fini into wing attack downrange. But the Tapu Fini just has so much energy at this point. I bring in the Charizard. I think I might be able to farm this down, but I have to spend 2 shields doing it. So I just have to hope that the switch timer for the opponent is not coming up, so that I can actually get this farm down, come out with a lot of energy. But the switch timer is up, and the Skuntank is 6 fast moves away, so there's just no way I'm getting to 2 moves here. Go for the Hail Mary, hoping they miss the shield button. Blast Burn, nah, there's just not a lot I can do here. Unfortunately, they go for the crunch, take out Charizard, and then they poison jab down my Swampert. Good game. Next game, lead into a Trevenant. Pretty good lead. This is IV dependent if you can win the 2 shields as Walrein, because the Shadow Claws plus Seed Bomb might be enough depending on the IVs. I have pretty good IVs in Warrain, so I think I might be able to. I let the first seed bomb go. I generally don't like to shield my Warrain with this team because I like to have shields with the other two. I don't go for a move because I don't want to CMP tie them, thinking that I'm gonna lose the CMP tie to Trevenant. But they try to catch the Icicle Spear after over farming the Trevenant on a Tentacruel. So I swap into my Swampert. It's a pretty good situation. Over farm as much as possible. Go for the Earthquake. Boom. Take out the Tentacruel. Massive damage. I expect them to bring back in the Trevenant here. So I go for the Hydro Cannon. I maybe should have threatened the Earthquake because a Hydro Cannon is not enough. And they might be able to farm me down here, which would be very bad. But they're not quite able to farm me down. They have to throw some energy, but they still have a Shadow Ball bank. In some situations, you might want to consider just sacking the Warrain into this move, but the Warrain has so much energy, I don't want to sack it, so I bring in my Charizard and shield, and then there's another Tapu Fini. Go away from my Charizard. My Charizard does not like you. Go for the first Blast Burn. This is actually not as bad as you might think, because I have energy on Warrain. I was almost going for the Dragon Claw here, which would have been a huge mistake, because I can't just go for the Blast Burn. Even if they shield, I can just swap in my Warrain and then throw the Icicle Spear to take out the Tapu Fini. And they realized that their only win con was that I went for the Dragon Claw, and even then I would have probably won anyways. Next game, lead into a Snorlax. This is pretty awkward again, because a superpower does a lot of damage. It does about 60%, so Warrain can live it from this range. But it's just a Body Slam. Farm up, go for the Earthquake. I probably should have just gone for 2 Icicle Spears here. It does more damage. Earthquake is more energy efficient in neutral matchups. But yeah, they go for another Body Slam pretty much immediately. And again, I don't like spending shields on my Shadow Warrain, so I bring in my Swampert instead. Saving the Warrain for a potential catch. And then they bring in Giratina. Go for the Earthquake. And they shield it. Probably a pretty good shield, because yeah, Swampert don't tend to bait in this situation, I don't feel, against the Giratina. So if you want to shield once as the Giratina, you probably want to shield the first one. Go for another Earthquake, not expecting the shield, but they do shield the second time as well. Pretty yikes. And they go for a move. I think they could have farmed me down before I got to another Earthquake, and the Hydro Cannon is not really threatening, so yeah. People tend... it's a pattern I've been recognizing. People tend to like to throw one fast move after you bring something in and then go for a charge move. So I tried to sneak in a catch with the Warrain there pretty early on. That they don't throw. I also no shield the first Dragon Claw, thinking that there's just no way they're gonna go for the big move if they have the ancient power when I still have 2 shields. So I would rather no shield the first one. And then I have to shield the second 2, because otherwise I would just get farmed down, fast moved down. They try to catch in Snorlax, I don't allow that, and then they bring in Cresselia. I go up for the 2 Blast Burns. This is not quite enough to take out Cresselia, but they threw after 6, meaning this is only a Grass Knot. There might be a win con in me surviving this, wing attacking down. No, not quite. That is also an issue for this team. These very bulky teams can be quite problematic to deal with next game. Lead into a Shadow Skuntank. This one decides to stay in. Warrain can survive one move. It's not comfortable, but it can do it. And then I go for the Icicle Spear bait. I'm thinking that 2 Icicle Spears might be enough to KO, or it's going to be very close. Grab the shield, and then I'm gonna swap in Swampert with the intent of just sacking it, because when people lead Skuntank, they're very rarely gonna be weak to Swampert in the back. They're very often gonna be strong to Swampert in the back. So I'm just gonna sacrifice it. A Dragon Claw only does about 40%, so I will live this and then get off my Hydro Cannon. But I decide to undercharge this Hydro Cannon, thinking the Dragon Knight doesn't have any energy, and I would like to farm it down with my Charizard and come out with some energy here. Because Charizard up energy is just an absolute monster. They bring back in the Skuntank, go for a move. Of course, we have to start shielding at this point. It's a crunch. We get the defense debuff. Yikes. Go for the Dragon Claw. I think this is enough to take out a Skuntank. But I also really want to get out of this matchup because those poison jabs are doing a lot and I'm debuffed. So yeah, I want to swap out, go for the Icicle Spear, and they catch it on an invisible Registeel. Very nice play by my opponent, not only to catch the move, but also to have their Registeel be invisible. I mean, this is just next level play. They go for a Focus Blast. I think they would have been able to farm me down. An Earthquake only does about 56%, and then they would have been able to come out with 100 energy if they farmed me down after taking it. But they decide to throw, so now we can overfarm a lot with Charizard, go for the Blast Burn, and also get to the Dragon Claw onto Skuntank, and this should be enough. I hope it's okay I'm including some of these games where the game is struggling a little bit. I think it was a pretty good game, other than the fact that the Pokemon were invisible. Next game, lead into an Alolan Muk. Again, don't really like to shield my Walrein. Also, it could be an Acid Spray. Really don't want to shield that. Go for an Icicle Spear. And they actually shielded. This time I decide to stay in because I know I'm going to be able to outpace the Alolan Muk to an Earthquake. So they have to go down 2 shields or give me switch advantage. They go down 2 shields. Again, bringing in the Swampert with the intent to just sacrifice it because there is no way they're not strong against it in the back. And they bring in a Giratina. And I think they make quite a big misplay here. They should have definitely overfarmed because this Dragon Claw is not enough. So now I'm still going to get to my Earthquake. They're still going to take this damage, but they come out of the matchup with as little health or with as little energy as possible. Whereas if they didn't throw that Dragon Claw immediately, they would have been able to overfarm a lot more. I put up the shield here, and it is an Ancient Power. I don't know. And then I don't think they're at the Ancient Power here, but I'm thinking it's just so silly if I decide to let it go, and it is an Ancient Power. So I decide to put up the shield last second, and then I decide to catch the third move onto my Walrein, save all the energy on Charizard. Now we can farm down the Giratina. No, they swap out into a Tapu Fini. Yikes. But with this amount of energy, can Charizard actually take out a Tapu Fini? Once again, the Tapu Fini is invisible. The second Blast Burn does a lot of damage. We wing attack down the Tapu Fini. Get to a Blast Burn on the Alolan Muk. They should be enough to take it out. So it's gonna be a fast move down. Can Charizard take out the Giratina? Yes, it can. 1 HP and a dream. Charizard sweeps the entire team. Very nice game. Next game lead into a Pidgeot. And you might have been thinking, what do you do against a Jellicent? And the answer is, I cry. Go for an Earthquake, and then I take some of this energy from the Jellicent onto Walrein before swapping in Swampert. I swap in Swampert because it can tank the moves from Jellicent better than Charizard can. And I'm thinking it's close to Hydro Cannon range, so I might be able to Mudshot it into Hydro Cannon range. Go for a Hydro Cannon here. Is it enough to take out the Jellicent? Not quite, so I have to go for another one on CMP. They're at the Shadow Ball at this point. And actually decide to shield it. I really want to keep alignment, although it is tempting to have a shield advantage for Charizard, because I really want that Walrein on Pidgeot. And then they bring in Scrafty. I could have made it to the Earthquake, I think, but I decided to go for the Hydro Cannon just to get my switch timer up so I can bring in the Charizard. And they go up to 9 counters, so they are 2 over the foul play. It's 7 for the first, 6 for the second, so they should be 4 away now. So go up to the CMP on the Dragon Claw, which of course Charizard is gonna win. Take out the Scrafty. Now what are they gonna bring in? They bring in Pidgeot. I go straight for the Blast Burn. This will do massive damage if it lands, but they shield it. And they farm down, so they come out with quite a bit of energy. And they throw a move. Is this just a Feather Dance? Is it Brave Bird? I shield it. It is the Brave Bird. So now they're going to have to try and catch. I'm expecting it. I wait a turn. They wait a turn. And then they try to catch. Very nice. Farm it down. The Jellicent come out with a move for the Pidgeot. And they concede the game. Next game. Lead into another Cresselia. Yikes. Same game plan as last time. Try to catch the second Grass Knot onto Charizard. They go for a move after 8, so they're 4 away at this point. Take 6 for the first 2, 5 for the third one. Go for the Earthquake, and I'm gonna do 2 more Powder Snows right before I get to the Icicle Spear. Try to catch, but they wait a turn. Very nice play by my opponent, and then they bring in a Talonflame. This is not a Charizard counter. Fun detail as well here, you can just 2-shield. It's so tempting to call a bait, I know, but you can just 2-shield, and this is just not a problem at all. It doesn't matter if they bait you twice. Just go straight for the Dragon Claw, and can overfarm quite a lot here because they were 2 away. Go for the second Dragon Claw, and I don't want to CMP tie them here because I'm afraid that if I throw immediately, they might get an entire Incinerate through. So I allow them to throw their move instead. It is a Brave Bird. Now we can farm them down, come out with a lot of energy. Now what do they bring in? They bring in a Shadow Charizard. Go for the Blast Burn. And they shield it. And now I'm going to swap into my Walrein. Go for the Icicle Spear, but they catch it on Cresselia. Very nice play by my opponent. And then they overfarm perfectly to right before I get to the Icicle Spear. And then they go for a Dressnut. They still have quite a lot of energy in this Cresselia, so I can't overfarm a lot. I also can't bring in my Swampert, obviously, because the Grassnut would just KO. So I have to bring in Charizard. Farm up a little bit more. Go for the Dragon Claw. But my switch timer is not up. I would have loved to swap in my Swampert right now, but I have to stay in. Commit to the Blast Burn. Shadow on Shadow. This might be resisted, but it does so much damage. And now there's just no way my opponent is going to get to enough moves to take out Swampert. So we must shut it down instead. That is a GG. Next game, lead into Galarian Weezing. Generally a good matchup for Walrein. My opponent goes up to 7. So this might be an overheat and dip strategy. It is. Go for the overheat, and then they dip into Cresselia. I swap in Charizard, but they only do 7 Psycho Cuts. I would definitely suggest that you at least threaten the future side when you're in this matchup for Cresselia. Because it's just an easy no shield for me when they're only doing 7 Psycho Cuts. Then I go for the Blast Burn. And I decide to shield this, thinking that they might be able to Psycho Cut me down. There's no way they're baiting here. There is a way they're baiting here. I was really not expecting that. I also go for the Blast Burn here again, because a Dragon Claw only does about 15%. I don't want to be in a situation where they no-shield the Dragon Claw and I have to shield again in order to take them out. And there's no way they bait me twice, right? Come on! They do bait me twice. But at this point, the Cresselia is in Dragon Claw range, so I go up to right before they get to the next move. They go for the first Dragon Claw, and they let it go. What do they bring in now? They bring in a Walrein. And I'm thinking, if I bring in my own Walrein, I'm expecting them to stay in, because they would rather have their Walrein onto my Walrein rather than their Galarian Weezing. So even if I swap in, I'm still going to get my Swampert onto the Galarian Weezing, so I don't have to let them farm me down with Charizard. Swap in Walrein, go for the Earthquake. They overfarm by 1. And then go for the Earthquake. Gonna wait out my switch timer just to get my catch ready. And then I'm gonna bring in Swampert. And I'm very cautious that they might try to catch here, because I don't want them to catch a Hydro Cannon on Galarian Weezing. And then I make a huge mistake. I thought they were further away from their move, so I let them get to a Brutal Swing. Now I'm in Icicle Spear range, meaning I have to come out of this with energy. And I'm thinking, once again, they're 3 away from their move, so I can't double up. But I make another huge mistake. I just don't know my Galarian Weezing counts, apparently. So they take out my Swampert. But we farm them down with Charizard instead and come out with a move. This was so lucky. So we take out the Walrein, but still, this is unexcusable. And what is the one thing you do when you make a huge mistake? You check up, what did I do wrong? Apparently, it only takes 15 Fairy Winds to get to an overheat and 2 Brutal Swings. So it's 7-4-4. I thought it was 7-4-5 or 7-5-4. Yeah, I'm not going to make that mistake again. But that is my number 1 suggestion. If you make mistakes, which of course everyone does in this game. But if you want to improve, always, if you make a mistake, check up what you should have done differently. Like, try and figure out what you could have done differently and how you could play it better next time. Next game, lead into a Deoxys, have to swap out immediately into Swampert, and they counter swap a double after going for a Psycho Boost. Go for a Hydro Cannon. They threw the first Body Slam immediately, so I'm thinking they might do it again, which is why I'm going for the CMP here instead of going for another Mud Shot, risking them getting an entire double kick through. But they actually double shield their double. And I've been seeing a lot of these Deoxys lead with like either double, Obstagoon, Scrafty, like a combination of those Pokemon in the back. So I'm thinking my Walrein probably doesn't have a lot of play here, which is why I'm basically sacrificing it, or getting a lot of energy on it and then just sacrificing all of its HP, thinking that if I can get some energy here and then also just save a shield for Charizard, I might be able to win this game. So save all the energy, bring in Charizard, they bring in Obstagoon. This is a very good matchup. Go for the Blast Burn. Puts the Obstagoon in kind of an awkward health range because I can't farm it down before they get to another move. Of course, don't want to shield the first Night Slash. Charizard can live it. I could go for the Dragon Claw on CMP, or I can shield this move and then farm them down, come out with a lot of energy. The double is 1 double kick away from a Body Slam. The Deoxys is 5 away from a Psycho Boost. So I should be able to win this game, I feel, with the energy from Walrein. Go for the Blast Burn. This should do a lot of damage to Deoxys. And then I decide to try and get fancy. Go for one more. And then I try to go for the Earthquake into Deoxys. But they catch it on double. They catch an entire Earthquake on their double. But it's fine. It's fine. I have the move stored on Charizard. As long as the game works properly, I should win CMP. But the move doesn't come up. My chat move button doesn't come up. I was throwing chairs around the room at this point. That was such an infuriating game. But I guess that's what I get for trying to be fancy. Next game, lead into another Deoxys. They play it the same way, stay in, throw that Psycho Boost before dipping, I assume. Don't want to stay in once you've debuffed yourself. And then they bring in a Scrafty. So this looks like a very similar team to the last one. They go for a move after 5. This can only be a pop. So go for the Hydro Cannon. And I'm thinking after seeing the damage that another Hydro Cannon is probably not enough. So I go for the Earthquake instead. Commit to it. And we take out the Scrafty. But this just kind of tells me they don't care about Switch because they probably have another counter user or another like fast move, fighting fast move Pokemon in the back. So I actually just hardcore that that's what they're gonna have, like an Obstagoon or a Double. And Charizard is better against those Pokemon than it is against Deoxys. So I decide to bring in my Walrein here. Go for the first Ice Cold Spear. I don't have to go for the second one. Then they get an entire counter. Instead I can save it because I know I'm gonna win CMP against Deoxys in the end game anyways. So I have to shield here. A Psycho Boost actually does more than like a Night Slash from Obstagoon. And they have 2 shields, so I go for the bait. But as I've been saying on this channel a couple of times, it's just too obvious that they're gonna bait when you have 2 shields. And my opponent, savage as they are, just decide to call that it's a Dragon Claw. Very nice call by my opponent. But we get to another Dragon Claw. At this point, they have no reason not to shield. So they do shield. And after this, of course I have to shield. I go up to 1 before they get to the next move. I get up to Dragon Claw plus Blast Burn. Usually you go for the bait first and then you go for the nuke. But I'm expecting my opponent to see that coming. So I go for the Blast Burn. I actually didn't even have the Dragon Claw afterwards. But we get to the Dragon Claw on Deoxys. They have the move now. Swap in Walrein. CMP tie on the Ice Cold Spear. Is this enough to take out the Deoxys? No, it's not. It lives like almost no HP. But they're gonna debuff their attack now. Can we wing attack them down before they counter their Charizard down? No, we cannot. It's a simultaneous KO. What a game. What a game. GG. That was the last battle for today, and overall I absolutely loved using this team. Shadow Charizard and Shadow Swampert are just so much fun if you can set them up correctly. And I also went pretty neutral with the team overall. I think I went slightly positive, a lot of 3-2s, 2-3s, but I'm also in the top 100 in the world, so the team definitely works if you use it properly. Other than that, final fact of the day, this is for the upcoming Sunrise Cup, where Vigoroth and Double are two of the best Pokemon in the meta, so I think this matchup is very important to be aware of. Vigoroth can get a bulk point on Double that flips the matchup. You want a bit of attack on Double. According to the Sims, Double wins this matchup, at least in the one shields, and it is very close, but with the bulk point, Vigoroth flips the matchup and can win every even shield scenario. So it's actually to Vigoroth's advantage. But if you get a bit of attack on Double, you will be able to get the break point even on a rank 1 Vigoroth. So definitely suggest checking that out. Other than that, if you like what you see or you feel like you learned something, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.